centre. Oh, this could be an opening. The man wants to have the opening. It's Lawrence Sheffield. That is the moment. The moment of matters.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Hearts on Sleeves podcast, a podcast all about Heart of Midlothian Football Club, its fans, the ups and downs that come along with it, both on and off the field. In a week that we saw Hearts get two back-to-back 4-0 victories, make it the first time in 73 years we have scored at least 4 goals in 4 consecutive competitive games. Thanks, everyone, for all your support and feedback. After that first episode, there was some people saying the volume in Adam's microphone was a bit low, so hopefully that'll all be sorted by the time you're hearing this. Trunter's microphone's not the best. That's still not been sorted, but we'll hopefully have that for next time. And John, again, is not joining us this week. I think it's going to be an ongoing joke. We're just going to tell you John's going to join next week, and he just never is. However, we do have back again Adam and Trunter. Now, Trunter, I know a couple of people reached out to you after last week's episode, and you just want to give them a wee sort of shout out there.
Yeah, that's right, mate. It was quite bizarre. The first one was was one of the girls I work with. It turned out her dad had completely randomly he said he'd been binging Hearts podcasts. So big shout out to Jude's dad. So, that was pretty cool to hear, and he was very complimentary, even though last week I was absolutely bricking it. But it was just really nice positive feedback from us. So thank you very much, dude. I hope you're listening this time again. I was also reached out to by my friend Prab, who put me in touch with Gary Cowan, who wrote the book Medals and Toffee Tins. So that's something we'll look at. I've had a wee chat with him. Obviously, we've just got started in here, but that's something we can look at in the future. He's a really nice guy, and I've just got 2 copies of the books. I've been sinking my teeth into them. And lastly, my friend Beth, she gave me a wee message saying that she knows someone, within Hearts, within Foundation of Hearts. And it was this was all within the first maybe 24 hours. I went up to Dundee just for a wee hotel stay with my girlfriend, literally just to get away and de-stress for a day. And I had all these messages, people trying to put me in touch with people. And again, just really positive feedback. So guys, thank you so much. It's really warmed my heart to get all these messages and people that are interested in maybe contributing at some point in the future. So yeah, thank you all. It's great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that book that you got recommended and sent. So we'll definitely focus on that in a future episode. Also want to say thank you to Andy. Now, talk about going above and beyond the call of duty here. Andy's my high-B friend, and he listened to the podcast and he said he enjoyed it. And he particularly liked our sense of humour when we talked about the optimism we had for the season ahead. So cheers for that, Andy. And I also got a message from my mum who said, I didn't listen to the podcast, but I heard you did very well. So that's fantastic feedback from my mum there. Really appreciated. So enough of that. Let's go ahead and look at the first game that we'll be covering today. It was against Stirling Albion. Adam managed to go along to that with his brother John. Did you find it okay, Adam?
Hi, Jimmy. Yeah, this was a much more straightforward journey to the ground, because obviously last week we got lost on the way to the pub, we got lost on the way to the match, we missed the first goal, Jimmy missed the second goal. So this time was a pretty straightforward drive, parked in Morrison's, a 5-minute walk to the ground. And I thought it was actually quite a nice little ground that they had. Hearts sold out one of the stands, and then the terrace, both of the terracings behind the goal. So it was pretty much like a sold out ground of 3,000 plus fans there, and Stirling fans in the main stand. So yeah, it was a really nice stress-free journey to the match. And I even had a steak and sausage pie, which was the pie of the week. So that was one of the highlights of the day as well.
Well, so let's look at the lineup now for the Stirling Albion game. It lined up pretty much a 4-4-2. Xander Clark back in goals. Centre backs, we had Finlay and Halkett. On the left was Harry Milne again. Borch Grevenink was over on the right. Then in central midfield, I was really looking forward to this pairing, and we'll talk about how it played out. Devlin and McIntyre. Then over in the wings, we had Forrest again. Kiridis up front was Shankland and Braga. In last week's episode, we talked about things we were looking forward to seeing. I was talking about feeling excited at the idea of Braga and Shankland playing together, and I got my wish. Now, Adam, you'll have to remind me, did you say you were looking forward to seeing Kiridis again? Was there anything else you were particularly looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, so I think the main thing for me was Kiridis making his first start, which I think was very great to see. I think the other thing would have been Halkett and Finlay starting together for the first time, because I think that worked really great, and I think that could be a very good partnership for the season as well.
So for the first game, I do want to, I don't want to glance over this game because I think there's actually quite a lot to unpack, and there's some really interesting moments in this game, just with how I think McInnes may well set up for the season going ahead. And I think there's probably more indicators of that in this game than there is in the second game against Dumbarton that we'll cover. There's also some interesting piece of play from some of our new players I want to really look into. So things started off pretty quickly once again. That's really become a habit for every team we've been playing against so far. In the 6th minute, it's getting nicely knocked about. And then it's crossed in for Kiridis, who kind of scuffed his shot. About 4 minutes later, Shankland found Kiridis at the back post. Keeper does really well to save, actually. I thought maybe Kiridis needs to do a bit better. However, he does make up for it 3 minutes later with a great ball in, and Halkett gets on the end of it to make it 1-0. Great to see Halkett back in amongst the goals again. What was your thoughts on the goal, Trunter? And sort of going on into the first half, what were your thoughts? I know you mentioned Forrest, you're quite impressed with him. What were your thoughts then?
I was just after the first goal, Forrest had a really, really good one. It was like an instinctive attempt at finish to lob the keeper. I was gutted when that went wide. Yeah, Kiridis is he's looking like a proper player, eh? And yeah, I just love I love a centre back getting a goal. Like, what are they doing up there? But yeah, we look really strong at this point.
And I have to say that Kiridis, that Stirling right back will be having nightmares after that game. It was just such an impressive performance, relentless. What was your thoughts about Kiridis and the goal itself, Adam?
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant ball in and a brilliant header from Halkett. I've got hopes that Halkett's going to have a good season, and it's easy to focus on Kiridis, obviously, as a new signing, and he's quite exciting and everything. But really happy to see Halkett score a good header, and kind of I think if he can stay fit, he's got a chance of making a big impact again.
And one passage of play that I did want to bring up before the second goal in 22 minutes was Finlay. There seemed to be real intent to get the ball forward just from the back itself. Now, it wasn't, I think with Hearts, you're quite often used to seeing us pass sideways passing, a bit of build-up play there. Whereas I thought it was really interesting that he just completely cut out going to the left back and just went straight forward down the left wing itself. I thought that was a fantastic bit of intention from us, and I think it's something I really hope to see from us more going ahead. 22 minutes then, there was the goal from Braga, a diving header, a really fantastic header itself, and also that the cross-in from Borch was a good one as well. Trunter, what was your thoughts on the Braga goal then?
No, he can't be a diving header. So good. But Borch, I thought he looked powerful. Do you know what I mean? Like, he pumped that cross in, and he looks like a strong player. And Braga, I didn't expect him to go into the diving header there, and yeah, I love to see that. That's one of my favourite finishes, man.
It really was sort of after that second goal, we continued that pressure. Now, as I said during, I think it was a Hamilton game to yourself, Adam, we shouldn't be conceding against them. Well, I mean, I think this was even weaker opposition than that, and it was just continual throughout the first half. I noticed also Finlay coming forward and almost getting on the end for a second goal in 2 games within about the half an hour mark. But then it did become 3. Forrest cross it in. It takes a slight deflection off the Stirling Albion defender, but fell nicely for Kyrgios, who took no chances and absolutely slammed it into the net. Great to see him get off the mark, Adam.
Yeah, I've got to say, I love that goal. I know it's obviously a much easier one than the first 2, but I just love the way he absolutely blasts in the net, like so confidently. And yeah, that was a brilliant one for me. Just the way he hit it when it was a pretty straightforward goal, obviously.
And then it could have actually been 4 just before half time. Kyrgios again impressing. He held the line well to stay onside after a through ball from Shankland. Went 1-on-1, but again, a really solid save from their keeper, who I was actually, despite this being 3-0, I was quite impressed with him throughout the game. The corner following that was cleared off the line, and yeah, halftime really couldn't come soon enough for Stirling. Adam, what was your thoughts as we went into the second half, and just what was your feelings as the second half played out?
Yeah, I think it was one of those games where it was all tied up at halftime, and when you're making a few subs during the second half as well, I think that always takes a bit of the momentum out. So a bit of an uneven second half, but not something you can really complain about given it's the League Cup group stages and we're rotating the team so much. So it wasn't as enjoyable, but I think it was still a good chance to see some of the players we hadn't seen yet. I mean, I think one of my highlights of the second half was someone behind me saying that Danda was on the bench and he might come on when he'd been on the pitch for about 20 minutes already. Danda's new haircut. I've got to say, when John pointed out that Danda was warming up at half time, I was like, where is he? Because so it seems like a lot of people couldn't recognize the guy. But it was actually quite interesting as well, seeing guys like Danda actually come on, because I think there's a couple of players that people think are definitely moving on, and he probably will move on. But it was quite interesting that McInnes is still playing those guys, and I kind of find that in contrast to Critchley last season. I feel like had his favourite group, kind of told a bunch of guys they weren't favoured, and then it made things a bit harder. So it's interesting that McInnes is still giving guys like Danda a sub appearance, even if they're likely to move on, which I think is kind of sensible in case we actually end up needing one or two of those players.
There was actually a moment from Danda where I just thought, this is just not going to work out for him under McInnes. I kind of thought that before it, but then one of the first touches of the ball, we're trying to get things going quickly, and he just hesitated before doing a bit of a sideways pass. However, I don't know if Danda picked up on doing that afterwards or if McInnes had a word, but I noticed straight after that he made his passes quick and more instinctual, which really sets in better with a McInnes team. Again, Adam, I'm with you on this. I'm not convinced there is a future for him. I want him to do well. He's just one of those guys I've always had a soft spot for. He's definitely sort of one of those ones that has potential to be a flair player for us, but it just never really took off for him. I have to say, given the performance in that second half from him, I wouldn't totally write him off, but we will look at just how many players we've got later. When you start looking at ones who you definitely consider fringe players, you'd have to say he's likely to be one of those ones. Going back a wee bit, I did say that I was really looking forward to seeing McIntyre and Devlin worked together in the middle of a pitch. I had a wee space on my notepad all ready to write out notes for it. But I finished that first half and actually the game without really writing anything about the pairing because so much of the play, I mean, it's a positive thing I didn't do it because really, second parts of second half aside, it was just so one-sided that they really weren't called into action that much. In the second game that we'll talk about, I think there's some really interesting stuff about Devlin's play in general that we'll come on to. But yeah, all our play was just launching it forward or down the wings, and Sterling just really had, for the first half, no answer to that. They did change their formation that made things a bit more difficult, and they also swapped out the right back who's having a torrid time for a more experienced one in that second half, which again slowed things down for us. There's not really much to go on other than up to 79 minutes when Finlay scores from a corner. Actually, no, he didn't score from a corner, did he? It was It's given to Halkett, isn't it? So what was your thoughts on that, Trunter?
I rewatched it again just before we started recording the pod today. I couldn't tell from the different camera angles. We were chatting about VAR briefly last week, and the joy of having to wait, or the lack of joy of having to wait to see if the goal is credited to you or if it's offside or blah blah blah. And Finlay 100% thinks he scored that, or he thought he scored that at the time, and I don't. And it turned out he didn't. I mean, it was definitely given to Halks, wasn't it?
Yep, it was definitely given to Halkett afterwards, which I thought was pretty harsh. But either way,
Yeah, I thought it was harsh too. It looked over, and again there was no VAR this time, so there's. If we go back to no VAR, we're going to get the was that over? Didn't we have VAR to tell the ball was over the line? Yada yada. But no, it was quite fun trying to watch to work out who actually scored it.
regardless of who scored it, it's great to see goals coming from all over the pitch, from different positions of players. However, our strikers kind of fluffed their lines towards the end a wee bit because Wilson was played through by Khartoum, but he just couldn't quite finish in the 84th minute. It's one of those ones I thought was a great save again, but it was given as a goal kick. Looking at replays, I'm still convinced it was a save, and I think the keeper will probably claim it as a save. But goal kick it was. 87th minute, Cabango from 6 yards out mistimes effectively a free header and puts it over the bar. A really disappointing effort. And that was how it finished. 4-0. Job done. The one sort of key phrase, I looked over what McInnes said after the match. He said that he doesn't want to play with a 10. He definitely wants to play with two strikers. And, it's clear that the way that we're playing, it kind of alluded to that, but that does put into question, again, the likes of Danda and so forth, you'd probably assume would likely take a position like that. What was your thoughts on the game as a whole, Adam?
I think it was mainly just that we've been incredibly consistent, throughout the group stages. To go just 3-0 up at half time, have the game already done. I know Sterling are League Two, but it's just like, and also I think we made 8 changes again, something like 8 changes for that game. So to be able to just rotate the team so much and just stroll through it and have the second half be a non-event, I think is really encouraging. And seeing some of the new guys, seeing some of the potential partnerships. So I know it's only the League Cup, but it's hard not to feel really positive at the moment, to be honest. Just the way we are professionally kind of getting on with things and easily winning every match, which is not something I think we always would have done in the group stages, to be honest.
So the second game we're going to cover is Hearts against Dumbarton. This was a special one for me because this is the first game for Robin, my son, the first ever Hearts game proper. When I told him, to be honest, he's not that into football. I managed to convince him with the promise of a hot dog and with the fact he could stay up past 10 o'clock, well past his bedtime, and also threw in the promise of getting him something at the club shop. He picked up this Jock the Jambo squishy toy. I thought it'd only be a tenner. It's like 25 quid. But the queue is so long, I just thought, oh, I can't really go back. And also, I wanted to really make sure that he enjoyed every last aspect of the game and pre-game, just so I could lure him back into more games.
You don't
However,
want
told him about the pod, get a discount.
Well, I'll try that next time. However, I don't think they're likely thank me for the fact I just told them their prices are extortionate for Wee Cuddly Toy. But anyway,
Ruined it for us.
I've ruined it right from the get-go. So yeah, it was a special game for me, but also it does mean my attention wasn't so much on the game. Yes, I was there watching it, but I didn't write down any notes, to be honest. So I'm going to rely on you guys a bit more for this one. It's funny because I sort of said to Robin beforehand, you might hear some colourful language here, Robin, and people get quite excited at football. So you might hear some words that you wouldn't typically hear and all this kind of thing. And I have to say, the game itself was what you'd expect from fourth League Cup group stage game with job effectively already done. It was a quiet atmosphere, which is good because I didn't want it to be too noisy for him. He's only 7, so I didn't want it to be too intense a game for him. And I was just thinking after the first half, you know what? He didn't actually hear any swear words or anything like that. Then, about the midpoint of the second half, we're in the main stands, and you could hear actually from the dugouts and everything. About midway through the second half, we just hear McInnes go, "Oi! Oi! Make the ball fucking work!" The game itself, then, the game itself, I'm just having a look at the lineup now for us. It was a bit of a strange. The reason I'm kind of pausing here is because it was a slightly strange setup. It was, I think, best way to describe it would be a 3-4-3. In goals, we had Fulton, and then there was a back three of Kingsley, Kent, and Steinvender. It was kind of more of a back two at times with Kent and Steinvender. Kingsley kind of moved up and ran along the channels more than I was expecting, actually, when I saw that. Then you had Spittle and Khartoum as wing-backs, sort of thing. Again, bit of a strange one. Devlin and the Hoff in the middle. And then we had Wilson, Shankland and Kabangu all playing up front. I was happy to see that.
Throwing caution to the wind, it was good. Yeah, I thought Kingsley would be more defensive, but he was pretty productive up the left there. I mean, if we're I'm not sure how well that'll work in the SPL, the whole thing, but yeah, it was definitely a 3-4-3. It looked really attacking. I mean, Neuenhoff and Devlin down the middle and stuff, but kind of Spittle and Khartoum on either sort of like wing or wing back. I couldn't quite work out if they were meant to be more defensive or offensive. But yeah, we're definitely going for it.
And I think, Derek kind of admitted himself, he kind of got the setup a bit wrong, but really, to me, it just looked like he was making excuses. They didn't really need to. To me, looking at that, it looked like a team he wanted to get minutes for players, really, with that lineup, and still be able to do the job. And he just kind of shoehorned them into a formation that, actually, to be honest, it did work okay. It worked pretty well, by and large, against a Dumbarton team that I actually thought, Adam, I thought they were quite structured pretty well for the most part. They didn't look too frail. Again, I know we managed to put 4 past them, but I thought they looked pretty well organised, Adam. What's your thoughts?
Dumbarton, I thought actually would, given their level, I thought Dumbarton looked pretty good. I think their goalie I thought the goalie did pretty well. He's only 18, didn't seem to be very tall, but I thought he looked quite impressive. Like there was an early one where he ran out, kind of came out of his box, and managed to get the ball, and I thought he did well, and I thought Dumbarton looked pretty solid actually.
I didn't
given
realise he was 18.
Yeah, really, really young guy.
Brave lad.
I thought he was quite impressive because when you first see him starting a young guy that's kind of not particularly tall for a goalie. I don't know how much he's actually played for them. I'm just looking at, looks like he started a few games at the end of last season. That was kind of his introduction, from what I can tell.
So we're made to wait 17 whole minutes for the first goal, and this is the longest we've had to wait for the whole League Cup group stages. And Robin, throughout this, was complaining, "Why is there no goals yet? Why is there no goals yet?" I said, "Don't worry, they'll come, they'll come." And eventually he did. It was a nice header, but really the goal was made by Kingsley, who again was rampaging up, and it was a fantastically weighted cross. And the captain headed it home. What was your thoughts on the goal, Trunter?
Like you say, man, Kingsley, he was just, obviously rolling back the years, but it was it was a pinpoint cross. I mean, he's still got it, and like we were saying, he wasn't really playing as a centre back or left centre back in a back three. He was still getting right up there, and yeah, that delivery was just absolutely beautiful. I mean, I think McInnes was trying him out to see what he wants from him this season. I think there's still a player there, man. Like I've always been a big fan of Kingsley. I think he's one of these guys. I've always really enjoyed players that are really good at just pinging a ball accurately, and he is top tier for that.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to see how Kingsley gets on, because we've only got him and Harry Milne as the left back options, and I think Kingsley's another one who there's maybe some doubts about because he hasn't played. He didn't play much like second half of last season, so it's really encouraging to see him do well. And guys like him and Halkett, kind of guys that have been here a long time now, so really interesting. If we can get him doing well again, I think he could be a good player. So good to see that he did a great cross in.
It,
Yeah.
It'll be confidence boosters for your Halkitts and your Kingsleys as well. Like you say, the guys that have been here for a while, injuries, getting a bit older, whatever, but they've both had pretty good games, man. So it's nice to know that we've got these options, and they'll feel better for getting these games under the belt, I think.
And I think that's one of the things that I've found really encouraging about these group stages. The number of guys we've played, the number of options that we're kind of seeing, because obviously we've got a big squad, but I think there's quite a few guys that have done pretty well, and definitely gives you some optimism for how the season's going to go, I think.
The guys that have come from the fringes as well, they seem to be playing for McInnes as well.
Yeah.
Where perhaps they might not have been playing so much for Critchley. I think they'll probably be rewarded, like good preseason performances, good, League Cup group stage performances. He'll be looking at all his options rather than just having his favourites. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's great to see that he's really used the squads.
absolutely agree. It doesn't look like anyone's sort of out there and just can't be bothered. It looks like everyone's
Yeah.
giving it their all, and I think that speaks volumes for what McInnes has done since he came in. So I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, there's no bomb squads, you know what I mean? When they're trying to pile out, like, well, Man United, not exactly the same thing as us, but yeah, they're trying to get rid of people that are just never going to get back in. But I think McInnes is doing his sort of due diligence on everyone that we've got in the squad and that we've got under contract.
So we did have to wait until the last minute of the 45 to get our second goal. As I said, Dumbarton did pretty well and dug in quite valiantly under the pressure. But it was a corner kick that finally broke them. I'd say that the Dumbarton boss wasn't convinced it should have been a corner, which eventually led up to the Steinvender goal. Where I was sitting, I kind of agree with him actually, but considering a couple of decisions didn't go our way in the last game, in that regard, it felt kind of like everything's evened out nicely for us. What was your thoughts on the Steinwender goal? It's good to see him scoring again. He's one of those guys. Steinwender's one of those ones that it's not really played on my thoughts much as far as centre backs go, but he's on the score sheet. What are you thinking about him, Trunter?
You say that about Steinwender, and Khartoum, apart from his like absolute beaut goals last season, he was kind of getting there for me as well, kind of on the periphery. His corner was great. The Steinwender goal was great, but it's weird that we're scoring from set pieces. That doesn't
Yeah,
feel like
well,
something that we do.
John actually made a point to me, about we scored a corner from a corner in this one. We scored a corner from the Sterling game. John was making a point that the set piece coach has come in, seems to be doing a good job, seems to have made an impact so far in the first few games. So hopefully that's a good sign.
So as we moved into the second half, there was one substitution. That was Kiridis. We'll come on to his goal in a second. Dumbarton did actually almost get themselves a goal back, pretty much straight from kickoff. Kingsley, quite uncharacteristically, was robbed of the ball. The guy cut inside and took a shot, and it smacked off the crossbar. Yeah, other than that, I mean, like I say, I was singing his praises earlier. That was a bit of a mistake from him, but by and large, he had a pretty good game. Moving on to Karidi's goal, this was a thing of beauty, this one.
Oh, that was beautiful. Oh yeah, that was a great goal. I mean, that's like a winger with an eye. There's wingers that can, ping them into the box, do a bit of skill or whatever, and the end product's lacking. I don't think that's what we've got with Karidis. I think we've got a guy he's got an eye for goal. He's going to be really supporting the strikers, but he's also going to be really wanting to notch up some tally for himself as well. It was it was very composed, I thought. Like, you could just see him kind of, I know what I'm doing, bish bosh, boom, into the bottom corner. Yeah, it was good.
I think that was possibly my favourite goal of the group stages, just the kind of coolness that he did it. He looked so cool when he did it, calm and just really easy. I loved the finish as well. And
Very
really,
intentional, yeah.
yeah, got high hopes for him based on the sort of little we've seen of him so far. Just think he could do really well and be a bit of a fan's favourite.
I mentioned earlier on how it's quite interesting watching Devlin play in this match compared to the previous one. It felt like he was provided more of an attacking threat in this one. It reminded me actually a little bit of when Critchley first came in. I know the Critchley era is kind of not looked on particularly positively, but we tend to forget actually when he came in, he did manage to put some positive play on and sort of kind of try and upgrade some of our players, and one of them was Devlin to try and give him more of an attacking threat, and it felt like we saw that again kind of throughout the half, but particularly for the Braga goal where he cut it in for him, and really instinctual from Braga, just angles his foot, pretty much bounces off it, and it goes. It was just, yeah, I was really happy to see Devlin provide more of an attacking threat. One of those guys that you think, is it going to be Devlin or Benny to go? And I keep on thinking it's going to be one or the other, but they both provide something. And this was just something a bit different from Devlin. What was your thoughts about Devlin throughout this game, Adam?
So yeah, I think Devlin did very well, and I think it's quite interesting, that seeing Devlin without Benny, because I think we had Devlin and Benny in the first game, but I think seeing him with another player like Hoff is really good. So like, I mean, John messaged me and said that Hoff was his man of the match. Actually, John's a massive fan of Hoff, and I like him as well. So I think having him with a different player alongside him can make a big difference to his game. And I think there's been some encouraging signs about, like what McInnes might be able to get out of him as well.
One of the other players, I just wondered how he'd fit in to McInnes' team, but here he is doing brilliantly again. So the game finished 4-0 for Hearts, and before we look at what that result meant for us as far as the group stages go and what the other results mean by and large. I do want to just talk about Kabangu, who I feel like he's not exactly become a boo boy as such. Just, sitting here in the crowd and reactions to some piece of play. Like, for example, Wilson, who I thought had a bit of a poor game against Dumbarton, when he crossed the ball a bit behind Kabangu and he wasn't really able to do much with it, people seemed to target Kabangu. It's worth noting that wasn't his preferred position. And yeah, I think he's definitely the striker that I would say I would least like to play, but we touched on this last week. I think there's definitely still a player in there, but he just is a bit of a rough diamond, and I'm wondering if McInnes will be able to get the best out of him, or if he even intends to try and get the best out of him. What are your thoughts on this, Adam?
Yeah, it's a strange one with Kabangu. I mean, he came in, scored 7 goals in his first few games, and then he scored 2 goals since then. So he's got 2 goals since February. It's one of those ones where I think, someone like Wilson, who's obviously really promising, will get cut a lot of slack because he's a really promising youngster, got a great future in the game. I think Kabangu, being a bit older, late 20s, doesn't really get the same break, but he's one of these guys that sometimes he can do really good things, but then he also misses chances. Like, even when he was on that good spell of scoring goals, I felt like he also missed some sitters. So it's really hard. I feel like he can do great stuff and he can also just mess up. So I'm a bit concerned, I guess, about how he's going to get on this season, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can't really see him being a regular starter, to be honest. And it'll be interesting to see how he will get on because he has scored 1 goal at least, in the group stages, but there's been some missed chances and kind of he's quite a clumsy kind of player, I would say.
We've got more
Yeah.
clinical guys that have come in, so it feels like we're going to be less reliant on bringing in someone like Kabangu. So if it works for him, if he gets his scoring boots on, then great. But he was. I mean, he wasn't a massive transfer when we got him, but we were all thinking we kind of need this guy to be good. And now we've got options. Like we were saying earlier, we've been scoring from all over the park. But the forward line, we've got some players there. So yeah, I'm less worried than I would have been last year. But
Yeah, that's a great point. I think after Kabangu's goals dried up last season, we didn't have a huge number of options at all, did we? So it's
yeah.
nice to be able to talk about a guy like Kabangu and not think, oh my God, it's like him or 1 or 2 other guys. Now it's, he's one of many. So hopefully that might take the pressure off him actually as well.
And I think it was quite interesting to see the reaction when Wilson, he went through 1-on-1 and he just hesitated. Quite uncharacteristic of him. He hesitated to the point where a defender was able to catch back up on him and he wasn't able to get his shot away. People were just, there's size and so forth, but people weren't getting on his back. And I do think that's because he's got youth on his side. He's, obviously someone who's come through the Hearts ranks. But as you say, I'm hopeful that because of the options we've got, it can mean that Kambangu can work on his game, and hopefully he will become, at least a decent player for us. I can't see him ever pushing Shankland or now even Braga out the first choice pecking order. But you want to see that competition, and I hope it does come.
I think we need to see that competition as well, because if Shanklin has an incredible season, if Braga has an incredible season, and if the new guys that have come in, if they have an incredible season, we'll lose them. It'll be another Penn Rice. So if we've got someone still in the squad that's maybe not been quite first pick, then we're probably going to count on them if we get big money for someone else. That we'll need to use who we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Harry Milne,
Yep.
replacing Penrith. That's the kind of thing we need, isn't it? Guys that can step up if we, especially I think with the analytics, the idea will be sell them at their maximum value. So I think having backup is almost more important than ever before.
It's worth noting now that that result does effectively mean that we are a seeded team alongside the other teams doing European football. It's not mathematically guaranteed, but I think more or less you could put your mortgage on it, quite frankly. So that's great. It does mean we will avoid our usual away trip to Celtic Park or Ibrox, something like that, in the next round. We'll have that to look forward to in the next round, I dare say. But was there any other results that caught people's eyes over the last few games? I noticed St Mirren managed to score 8 the other day, and it's a bit of a crazy game. 7 of their goals came in the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes. I wonder how they're going to get on the season. They are a team that I think will do well, and we'll have a look at our feelings on each of the other Premiership teams next episode. The other surprise, I suppose, was the Dundee game against Bonnyrigg, where Dundee actually managed to come out on top, which I think took everyone by surprise.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I was wondering where you were going with that one, but yeah.
I mean, Dundee, by the way, for those who don't know, they're already out of the League Cup. To give Presley his dues, he did come in and say, I'm not your man. If you want a history of league medals and awards, and well, he's certainly living up to that billing. And yeah, I remember you saying, Trunter, that just listening to him do interviews just makes you feel sad. He's got perhaps the most depressing voice out of any footballer there is going. He's probably the only guy I could think of who could make Merry Christmas sound like, I'm sorry to say that I backed my car over your cat. he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's likely to inspire players. But hey, again, that's something we can all save for our future episode and what we think will be the outcome of teams across a Premiership season.
Did you see the picture of him the other day when he looks about 12 feet tall?
Yeah, I did. What a bizarre photo that is.
I don't understand what's happened in that photo, but he looks like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Eric Andre sketch when it's he's basically two blokes in a giant overcoat going to buy a car. Look it up, man. It'll crease you.
He also reminds me of Adam. We love a bit of Father Ted chat.
Yeah.
Do you know in the Christmas episodes, like, who's got the most dull voice?
Oh, God,
out of all of us, the guy comes, that'll be me, Ted. But yeah, great when he played for us, though.
I was just going to say, great player.
It's actually interesting how he seems like he was a sort of inspirational captain, and then it's kind of translated into a totally different type. It's hard to imagine. He was such a great captain for us for a few years, and presumably could get the players sort of ready for matches, but. It's just hard to.
I feel he's a man out of time. I feel he's a man out of time. Like, he was incredibly inspirational for the old school, and it's just not quite translating. You just can't see that kind of gelling with the younger generation, with the TikTok generation, eh?
So this week there's been one player exiting Hearts, and there's been one player now confirmed. So that person who's been confirmed managed to get some minutes in the Dumbarton game. I don't want to speak too much about how he was in that game. I have to say he looked like quite a clever player. He looked like he was capable of sharp play, but it's so hard to say when he's not really had much of a pre-season. I think it's also worth noting that he's a guy that can play on the left, so he might be able to also he's typically more of an attacking player, but he can also play that left wing back role. So that really does kind of mean we've got 3 options down the left alongside Kingsley and Milne, which means that, McInnes said he's looking to bring in another player. I don't think is going to be a left-sided player, certainly not in the left back area. Kurjota came in for around 100 to 150k euros. We'll see how he gets on the Sunderland game. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does there. Kabori is likely to be signed before the Sunderland game, so again, we might get a chance to see a sneak preview of him during that game. Denham is the one that's attracting interest at the moment. I've heard that there's a few clubs, I think including Livingston and Ross County. He could basically be away within the next couple of weeks on a permanent transfer, and I think that would really be the best for all parties concerned. Nielsen has gone out on loan as well now. I don't think we mentioned that last one, so I'm mentioning now. What's your thoughts on Denham going? It seems the obvious thing at this present moment in time, Adam.
Yeah, 100%. He's gonna. I think it's 100% time for him to move on. He's 21 now. I don't think there's any chance that he will get close to the squad. So I think he's a definite time to move on. I think he'll make it at like lower Premier Championship team, but definitely would say move him on. Yeah.
He looked a prospect, didn't he?
He had some good games with us. He definitely did. He's just, I don't feel he ever kicked on to the extent where I thought, I think in European games in particular, I thought he did particularly well. Was it the Rosenborg away game? I remember he came on and looked pretty promising then. But he just didn't seem to quite, break through to the extent where we'd ever really want him ahead of what we've got. I think I speak for us all when I say I hope he does, wherever he goes next, I hope he does do well. Unless it's Hibs, or something like that. But I can't see him going there, to be perfectly honest.
We've got Tate out on loan. We've got Finlay Pollock still with us, who presumably will go out on loan. So I think Denham's probably kind of behind the pecking order, even of these kind of younger guys who are on the fringes as well. So I think Finlay Pollock will be one of the next guys to see go. I think he'll get a loan move though, rather than a permanent transfer like Denham.
Yeah, I mean, including Pollock and, assuming Kabori does get over the line, we'll have 32 players to choose from a match day. And that's way too much. There has to be more outgoings. Pollock, as you say, once he's fully recovered from injury, I would expect to see him try and get some minutes elsewhere. We've talked about this. We know that McInnes likes him and does see a place for him in this team, which is great to hear. The obvious one, I mean, when you look at what players we've got, there was some ones that I felt were obvious before these group stage games, and just we've covered them, but don't seem that obvious to go now. The one that still looks a clear one to go out, either on loan or just try and sell him on, would be Musa. What's your thoughts on Musa going, Adam?
I mean, out of the guys who are fit, I think he's the only player that hasn't had any minutes in the League Cup. I think he's someone who brought a lot of energy to the team in quite a rubbish season last year. There were moments where he came on, he brought a bit of excitement and energy. Maybe not the most ability. It's hard to see him. I wouldn't mind it being a loan just in case he goes out and does really well, but I think he'll probably move out on a permanent transfer.
Here's one for you. You're only allowed to keep Vargas or Cabangu. Who are you keeping?
Vargas.
Yeah, I'd say Vargas because there was a point when he was scoring a few goals and looked really good, and I think it lasted longer than Cabangu's sort of goal scoring spell. Vargas is also quite young, a few years younger than him. I practically forgot Vargas was still here, to be honest, because he hasn't played yet. I know he's been away. But yeah, I say Vargas, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I'd go with Vargas as well. He's younger. We've still got quite a lot of time on his contract. I don't know when Cabangu's contract's on until, to be honest. But Cabangu just feels more like one of those ones we're obliged to sign him, right? So I'm not sure how much we would have gone after him if we weren't obliged to. Vargas, he's shown what he's capable of. I know last season he didn't, but before that he's shown promise, and obviously the Costa Rican international team still fancy him. I'd be really interested to see how he does under McInnes actually, and I do hope he stays at least until December and see how he gets on. Yeah, I'd choose Vargas out of the two as well.
If Vargas can have a great spell, he's the kind of guy the club will be looking at who could make us a bit of money. He's early 20s, he's international player, long contract. I think he is someone, if you just get enough out of him, you could probably get a decent transfer as well.
Looking ahead to Saturday then, will be Craig Gordon's testimonial game for us. And before we talk and sort of look at the Sunderland team itself and what we can expect from the game, I think it would be pretty rude not to wax lyrical about Craig Gordon, what he means to us Jambos and what he's given the team over the years, and kind of just where he stands in Hearts' greatest ever players, certainly in our generation and so forth. Be interested to see what you both feel about that and any memories you might have of him. I think for me, one of my sort of favourite memories was in the Cup semi against Hibs in 2022. Now, this is, again, a really big game for me. Now, I talked about sort of my mental health in the previous podcast, and this was a big game because this is the first time I'd ever gone to Hampden. I was 40 years of age. I'd never been able to go there just due to my mental well-being and so forth. So this game meant a huge amount to me in more ways than just the fact it was a Hearts Hibs game in Hampden. It meant beyond that for me. So yeah, it was a huge day for me. And I remember the game itself, we were, 2 goals to the good, plain sailing, and then Hibs pulled one back. And at that point, Hibs could have quite easily, if they'd equalised in that second half, I just don't see any way that we would have been able to stop them from scoring another. It was all Hibs in that game. And we've got such a good record against Hibs at Hampden. We've never actually been beaten by Hibs outside of Edinburgh. So if Craig Gordon hadn't made this ridiculous save against Porteous with a header, when I saw it, so I was at the other side of the stadium, I saw it, even when he'd saved it, I thought it was in. It was that good a save. I couldn't, genuinely, my eyes couldn't believe what I'd just seen. It was just a remarkable save. And I think, yeah, so that's probably one of my greatest Hearts memories, full stop. So that's, what that moment meant to me and just what that day meant to me. And, he's just, Craig Gordon is the best shot stopper Scotland has ever produced. You can argue till you're blue in the face about the best goalkeeper is in ones with the ball at his feet. I think he'd admit that himself. He's had a lot to learn there. And also maybe coming out, commanding his box. I know particularly Celtic were never impressed with his ability to do that. But the best shot stopper Scotland has ever produced, I will take no arguments on that. He's just made some incredible saves. And I think another one that jumps out at me, it was for Sunderland. I don't know if anyone remembers this game.
Are you going to talk about the Bolton game?
I'm going to talk about the Bolton game. So
I knew you were.
It was just a ridiculous save. It's genuinely the best save I've ever seen. It was one of those ones. So it was point blank. I think it was from a corner. Am I right in saying that, Trunter?
Yeah, I think it was. There was quite a lot of folk in the box, so there were bodies there. Which just added to the sort of chaos.
And it was point blank, and he dived to save it. And the way he angled his hand, even though it was on the line, he still managed to get the ball over the bar. He was capable of producing moments of ones that you'd watch it and be in complete disbelief at what you'd seen. Don't get me wrong, there was times last season that I thought, look, I really want Xander to come in and play here. I don't feel he's got it anymore, but then he'll produce a save or a performance that brings you back into consideration, and in your thoughts that what he's still got is what we need. And I'm really not looking forward to him retiring. I know he's going to go at the end of this year because it really feels like the end of an era, and I feel it's almost a different Hearts we're going to be seeing next season entirely, because obviously there's this everything with Jamestown analytics, but also with Craig Gordon retiring, it will really feel a lot different. So yeah, Adam, it'll be the end of the era. It'll be a sad time, but I suppose Saturday is going to be a day of big celebration for him. Do you have any memories you want to share, or just where you feel he ranks in the greatest Hearts players that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the absolute greatest Hearts players of my lifetime. I mean, at his peak, world-class player. He was the record British signing for like a record fee for a goalie in Britain at one point when he moved to Sunderland. And I think more than him just being a great player, he comes across as like a really great guy. I think he's like really inspirational. And in terms of great saves, the ones that jump to mind for me, first of all, would be the Motherwell save when obviously Burley came in 2005. We won the first 8 games, and Gordon made a late save to keep our winning run going, and that was absolutely incredible. Another one that I was thinking about was the Sparta Prague game, and he makes this incredible triple save like in the space of like seconds, and that was absolutely incredible as well. I mean, and the thing about Gordon is he could list like 10, 15 amazing saves that he's made. Yeah, and like and me and John went to, when it was like the 150th anniversary celebrations. Me and John went to the goalie event, and like we spoke to Gordon at the end briefly. And even then, like, you know, as an adult, you know, I went up to him and you actually felt really nervous because he's just like, I think he's one of the, from this century, you know, he's one of my absolute favorite players. You know, him and Scatchell and a couple others. I mean, yeah, I think it's a kind of. And the other thing is, like, you know, how many more players will we actually see in a testimonial? So, you know, how many players will actually make it to this many years at us? So I'm really looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. And also another thing I've got to say, like, I was never really Clark to come in last season. I was quite happy with Gordon, to be honest. And I kind of feel like let's appreciate Gordon for as long as we can. And this is his last season. I think he's still capable of being a brilliant goalie. So that my view is just we're lucky we got him back at all, and appreciate him for another year. I appreciate every game until that's it, because I don't know the next time we'll see a goalie that good at us.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I want to bring up there, Adam, you mentioned the 9 million we got for him, and you think about players who've brought the most money into the club, not just through fees but also performances. You'd have to think about Craig Gordon being that conversation, because you know, you think back and just what his saves have given us point wise and what that's meant for us being on the league table, and also European football. We talk about Shankland's 23-24 season giving us European football single-handedly. And there's a pretty reasonable debate for Craig Gordon's 21-22 season giving us European football there. So yeah, what he means to the club, and even just a financial level, is really significant. What are your thoughts on him, Trunter?
Yeah, I mean, have we sold anyone for more than 9 million before?
Nowhere
Or
near
since,
it.
sorry.
Still
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Not even
Yeah.
like a quarter, probably. Like, well, not even half, that's for sure.
And then for him to come back, it was kind of like we were talking last week about how were all kind of resigned to the fact that Shanklin wasn't coming back, and it just didn't seem like a possibility to have a player of like that caliber come back. When Craig Gordon came back it was 2020, wasn't it? So
That's right.
I didn't think that was going to happen, and he was just absolutely instrumental. And I think when you know that you've got a goalie that loves the club and that's going to die for the 3 points as well, it's just incredible, like the difference between having just someone that signed for some money, played a football, blah blah blah. But Craig Gordon, I can't think of any time I've ever faulted him. I remember I looked up a picture earlier of when our best friend Stephen Presley was with Paul Hartley and Craig Gordon when it was the Rickerton 3 thing, and I could not believe how young Craig Gordon looked. But even then, it was that was a difficult time for us. The guy's always been quite outspoken about his passion for the club. I've always thought he was a good guy, and I've always thought he was a dedicated goalie. He got us 9 million from Sunderland, and he's come back to the club, and he was instrumental, like that 21-22 season, like you say. So he's got to be right up there in like the Hearts legends. He's a good. I served him a ginger beer at my work in about 2021-ish as well. Some of the girls were kind of fawning over him as well. They were like, "Oh my God, Craig Gordon's here." And he was just a really nice guy. He had his whole family in as well. They were all lovely. So yeah, Craig G, legend, man.
Trunter, I know you and me, we both have a bit of a soft spot for Sunderland. You, in particular, still really like them. I have to say, I used to follow them quite a bit, particularly when Craig Gordon went over to them. But we've always had a pretty, I think most Jambos quite rate Sunderland because there's always been a bit of back and forth with our players there. What's it been? There's Kevin Kyle. There was Magic Johnson a few years back.
Some guy called Craig Gordon.
Well, Craig Gordon, of course, is the player we're going to have the testimonial for. So I figured our listeners would probably be able to figure that one out themselves. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
And of course, Sleeves Elliott as well. So there's always been over the last 20 years or so a bit of a connection with Hearts and Sunderland. I've always really wanted to go to the Stadium of Light. This game, even though it's a testimonial, even though it's a friendly, I think it's going to be really pretty competitive. This is McInnes's last chance to, he's going to want to maintain that momentum. This is not going to be just a happy wee pass about and bring on an old legend or two onto the field for each team. It's going to be a pretty full-on friendly with both teams. I'd certainly imagine looking for a result. Particularly ourselves, Sunderland still have a month of preparations before their season starts, but they're a pretty formidable outfit. I know Joe Bellingham's gone out, but there's still plenty of players there. You're going to cause us quite a few issues, I'd expect. Can you give us a lowdown on what we can expect on Saturday, Trunter?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from what I've seen from them, Reggie Lebree's a pretty good coach, pretty attacking coach. They've been they were doing like a 4-3-2-1. It was quite attacking. I didn't think they were going to get promotion last year, and then just as we were sort of encroaching on the promotion playoffs, like they started going kind of like 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 as well, just to really like frustrate people. They really ground out the end of the season, and they've signed they've signed Brighton's Adingra, who is absolute lightning. They've got some solid players. One of the guys that I always like to sign on, if we're talking Football Manager or FIFA, is Chris Rigg. So he's, God, what is he? I don't know if he's even 19 yet. I think he might still be 18. He's a phenomenal attacking midfielder. One of my other favorite podcasts, one of the fellas is a Sunderland fan, and he's absolutely mad on Chris Rigg, and also Enzo Lefebvre, who was on loan from Roma, and he's he's somewhere in his 20s. I think he's about, I don't know, 25 or something like that. And they've signed him on a permanent for about, I think it's about 20 million. He's a proper player. Like you say, they've lost Joe Bellingham, but they've got some real talent. Like, oh god, what's his name? Dan Neal's the holding midfielder. I think he's the captain, but they've they've also got. I think they're looking at defensive options to move up into the Premier League. But they have one of my absolute all-time cult hero favorites, a fella called Luco9, who basically, if you go on YouTube, look up Luco9 versus Portsmouth. I think that's probably the first thing that'll come up. He gets absolutely chopped into the crowd, into the Portsmouth fans. One of them starts swinging at him, punching him, and kicking him, and he just comes out smiling. And at the end of the match, when they interview him, he's like, "Oh yeah, whatever." He's still smiling. That's football, Like I'll take that. I'll take that. And that's that's kind of one of the reasons that I started playing this Portsmouth in FIFA about sort of 5 or 6 years ago. But they've got some real talent there. They've got a really they've got some really good wing backs as well that might cause us problems. They've got a fellow called Hume. He's Northern Irish, and he looks particularly tasty. And they've also got Trantis that was on loan at Hibs last year, who's playing. I think he was playing defensive mids at Hibs, and I think he's more of a defender. But it'll be interesting to see if he plays against
I
us.
was about to say, now that could be quite tasty if he ends up
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, man.
I remember that the fullback you're talking about. Is it Trihume or
Yeah,
Trihume?
yeah.
I remember seeing him play for Northern Ireland back. I think he was probably still at Linfield at the time, and I remember thinking, "Oh man, I'd really love it if we could get a player like him." And just whilst he's still a wee bit under the radar, but no, he's a class player and one that I'm really looking forward to watching him play. Actually, he's a great player to watch. So I hope he does get some minutes. Did you have a look at the sport? I know Sporting played Sunderland last week. Sporting
Yeah,
beat them 1-0.
they beat them 1-0, but it seemed to be a pretty positive game for both sides,
Mm.
and they drew 1-1 with Sevilla. So I mean, these are pretty good results, and like I say, they do seem to have been strengthening. I think they'll if I'm honest, I think they're going to pump us, but I don't think they're going to. They're not going to play us to pump us. I don't think, but I don't know. Do we know if Craig's going to play or not yet?
So he's hoping to get on for a few minutes at least, and yeah, but I really do hope that there's a really good attendance for it. I think it will be an excellent competitive game, and if you've not got tickets, I would really encourage you to. It'd be great to see a big sellout crowd, or as close to sellout crowd as possible. Are you looking forward to the game as well, Adam?
Definitely, yeah. Really nice to obviously have a testimonial for Gordon. Also, just quite excited to see the players get one more chance before the season properly kicks off. And I think we've got every stand open for the match. I think there will be a really good crowd. There's only, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 tickets left to sell or something. So it'll be a lot bigger than it was against Dumbarton, obviously. So yeah.
Is anyone feeling brave enough for a prediction for the game then?
Oh, for the Sunderland game. Oof. I mean, you never know how testimonials are going to be played, but I think Sunderland going into the Premier League, and I think Hearts being on the back of this run, I think we're both going to go for it. So it could be
4-4.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Adam, what are you thinking?
Gonna go 2-1 Hearts.
Nice. I'll go with 4-4, but I'll also add that Craig Gordon's going to come up for a corner right at the end, and he'll knock it over the bar. You think we're going to win at 5-4 right at the end? Is going to be the perfect end to the testimonial. They'll just put it over the bar. That's my random prediction for the game.
Mate, that's so depressing.
I know. I'm not going to go anymore.
I want to end on a high here, guys. You know.
Good lad.
Obviously, Craig Gordon gets a penalty, scores it last couple of minutes. Deliberate penalty. You know, they give away a penalty on purpose. Craig Gordon comes up 92nd minute, scores it 2-1
I
Hearts.
like it.
Yeah.
The
Did you
perfect
guys
avenue
see
of
the
address.
there was a thing on the BBC as well. Sunderland brought him a bunch of like Sunderland shirts, like worn
Yeah.
Sunderland shirts and gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
I thought
nice.
that was really
That's
cute.
classy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either way, whatever result it is, we'll be here to talk about it next week. As I said, hopefully you can get yourselves along to the game, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the game or any issues, both on and off the field, that we might have brought up on the podcast. And you can reach us by emailing heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com. That's heartsonsleevespodcast@outlook.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.